try to work it all out. Two middle-aged guys try to work it all out. Two middle-aged guys try to work it all out. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Two Middle-Aged Guys Trying to Work It All Out. I'm Chris, and as always, with me is my good friend...
I'm sorry, Chris. I'm just so thrown off by your new voice that I have actually forgotten my name. Line.
I think it's Dave.
Dave, that's right. Dave. This is me, Dave. What's going on?
I'm not surprised that the voice is throwing you off. I am a little surprised it made you forget your name. Maybe this is a superpower that I can develop and use for good going forward. But I am feeling a little under the weather, got some kind of a summer cold thing going on. Or, as everybody just says, oh, it's just allergies, don't worry.
It's just allergies. It doesn't matter what you have.
Yeah,
you've got Ebola.
Exactly right.
You're bleeding from your eyes, your ears.
These allergies made my eyes bleed all the time. It's terrible. I just need some Claritin.
It's true. Most humans are allergic to Ebola.
Yes. Very
common
true.
allergy.
But anyway... That's the excuse for my voice tonight, and maybe the listeners will prefer this. Maybe they'll lobby for me to be sick all the time that we record. I hope not, but hopefully we can get through this episode, and everybody will forgive the timbre and just focus on the content.
Well, if they prefer it, you will have to suffer for your art.
Which I'm willing to do. I'm not sure how to guarantee being sick every single time, but I'll work on it.
Pick up random drinks at the mall.
Yeah. Hey, could I have a sip of that? And it's like, why does this guy keep asking? Oh, that's weird.
Well, so I guess we're here. We probably have a topic and a show and a thumbnail to go along with it.
That's what you tell me.
All right. So... we've got, if you saw the thumbnail, you're probably wondering, what are Chris and Dave exchanging? Well, today, we're doing something a bit similar to what we did with our playlist episode, where we each picked 5 songs and said, hey, listen to these and let, songs that we wanted each other to have a react to and have an opinion to. And we're going to do that with TV shows. And the inspiration for this came from when I was ill in the hospital and recovering, and I was rewatching things. And I was mentioning to Chris that I had rewatched most of The Walking Dead and then most of another show, which was Community. And you brought up again, and you've told me this before, but it's really stung this time that you had never seen Community. And I was like, okay, well, now it's time for us to find a way to turn it into a show for me to make you watch Community. What a long, complicated way to say I wanted you to watch Community. So we decided to exchange shows that the either had not seen, watch a few selected episodes, and kind of get some opinions from each other about that, and also explain why there are these big gaps in our TV watching history. So I did not make you watch The Walking Dead. That would have been, cruel because it's gory,
which is another show I have never seen. So it would have applied to the rules that we set.
It would have, but Community is special to me, and The Walking Dead is just just another show with zombies. So I thought I wanted to hear your what you thought of this. That's what we're doing today. We're exchanging television shows and curated, hand-picked episodes in specific order. Scientific. Me and my good friend Joe Pilot. I don't know if you know Joe. It's a hard C that you pronounce like a J. Joe Pilot. We came up. No, I did this on my own. And so I picked, as I've noted, Community for Chris. And Chris, what did you pick for me to watch?
I picked the show Psych for you. And I'm very interested to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah. So before we get into that, though, I thought maybe we should do a little bit of, calibration on the things that we like. And I thought that I would lay out what Paste Magazine thinks are the top 5 best sitcoms of the 2000s. So from 2000 to today. And just see what you and I think of those so that folks will know if our opinions are on television are valid. We've done things like this before on movies and other things, so I thought I would kind of lay that out. I did specifically pick sitcoms because I was afraid I'd get stuck in some sort of Law and Order, CSI loop of those shows, which I did not want to spend any time discussing that kind of show. I thought I picked sitcoms. I thought it would be more fun. So I'm going to list what Pace thinks are the top 5, and I thought we could both give rapidly our impressions. Have we seen them? If we haven't, any reason why? If we have, what we think. We're going to start with a show I'm very familiar with and have mentioned several times on this podcast, and that is It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia from 2005 till today, starring a weird cast of characters, often compared to Seinfeld, the show about nothing. Seinfeld on crack is how it was once described. So I've watched this show. I want to hear, Chris, have you actually ever watched a full episode? And if so, what do you think?
No, I've not actually ever watched a full episode. I've just seen clips here and there on social media.
I sent you a clip a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, you did. You did, in fact. It seems like the kind of show I would like. I have no good reason why I haven't seen it, except that by the time it came up on my radar, it was several seasons in, and like to get caught up was a little bit daunting. So I just never walked down that road, even though there are several times my wife and I are staring at each other on the couch saying, well, what do we pick to watch now? And I could have easily said, well, let's try this. I just never did.
Yeah, so I watched Always Sunny, and I watched all of it up to a certain point, but kind of backed off of it. It is absolutely hilarious, but it is filthy. It is so dirty to the point where they often kind of tiptoe into like blasphemy and those sort of things. We're like, all right, probably not the show.
Is it a network show?
FX.
Oh, okay. I always thought it was a network show, so
yeah.
I wasn't comprehending that.
Basic cable. Sort of.
Yeah, they can do anything on that wasteland of TV. I mean, there are no rules.
All right. So that was number 5. Number 4 from Paste, King of the Hill in your world of animation. What do you think of King of the Hill?
So I have seen King of the Hill. I'm quite fond of King of the Hill. I think it's very funny. I think it's a good send up while also love letter to that type of character. I love it. I've enjoyed it. I've seen the whole thing. Oddly enough, not super excited about the revival, but it's been getting incredible reviews, so I might have to check that out at some point. But yeah, King of the Hill, thumbs up.
Yeah, love the show. I think you put it in a perfect way. It plays around with these characters, but not at their expense or at the expense of people who live in Texas or the Midwest and are blue collar. It is a love letter to those type of folks and the challenges they deal with. It's a hilarious show. I will watch the revival or give it a shot. I'm kind of indifferent to it, because revivals just, well, you know how that's dangerous ground. So, but I'll definitely give it a shot. Number 3 from Paste is The Office UK. The Office USA was up on higher on the list. I think it was number 7. So The Office UK, Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant. Have you seen this?
Not all of it. No, I've only seen an episode here or there. I'm like too close to The Office, right? Like it's the same reason that Office Space as a movie is not one that I watch a lot, because it's like, oh, I've experienced this. And so it always makes me a little less enthused about it. I think Ricky Gervais is funny. I think Stephen Merchant's funny. I understand why the show is so popular. It's just not something I've ever gone into in full.
I have watched all of it. Although I have to admit that towards the end, I was probably not paying a ton of attention. It was probably more background noise. I think it was on 3 seasons or 2 seasons. You know how BBC is, right? And their limited runs of shows. It was fine. It was funny. It was very funny. I guess you could say I preferred The American Office just because I could relate to it better. Because I am an American, and culturally it made a little bit more sense to me. But there were some very funny things, and Ricky Gervais is a very, very funny guy. So his David Brent is really funny, and I like it. I don't know, 3 seems awfully high, but I guess that is created the Office franchise where there are Office shows all over the world and made Ricky Gervais rich beyond his wildest dreams. I mean, it is pretty important and pretty impactful. So,
yep, agreed.
And also, Martin Freeman is great in comedy. Although I have to say that his American version, which is Jim, I much prefer on The Office. But U.S., The Office U.S., I should say. But, The Office UK is fine. Number 2, 30 Rock.
I'm a huge fan of Tina Fey, and I love 30 Rock. And even though I'm not a massive fan of Alec Baldwin, I will say his comedic performance in 30 Rock is one for the history books. It is so, so good. I laugh so hard at this show, and I dearly, dearly love it.
Yeah. I've watched a pretty good amount of 30 Rock. I'd say that it's probably the best comedic performances from everybody that's on the show. It's just not my favorite for whatever reason. It's really tough for me to get into. I know that 30 Rock, Parks and Rec, and The Office were contemporaries, and it was my least favorite of the three during that NBC time of, that sort of NBC golden age of comedy in the last 20 or so years. It's fine, but and I think Alec Baldwin is probably the funniest part of it. I think his comedic skills are, better than his dramatic skills. I think his dramatic skills are really good too. But for whatever reason, it's fine, but it just doesn't, it's like I can't get too into it. Maybe it's because I find the whole thing unrelatable, whereas The Office and Parks and Rec, both, I've seen those behaviors and types of people and that type of work in the real world. So I kind of get it and I have experienced it more. It's a little bit more, it sticks to me a little bit better. But, I think 20 Rock is fine. I think that 20 Rock, I think 30 Rock, 20 Rock
20
was
Rock,
terrible.
that's the prequel.
Oh, man. Woo, the prequel. Not as good. I think it's fine. I think 2 is way high on that. But whatever.
I mean, depending on what number 1 is, I don't know about that. I think I've seen 30 Rock top to bottom 3 or 4 times complete. I really, really like that show.
So remember, this is 2000 and beyond, a sitcom. Would you like to guess what number 1 is?
So 2000 and beyond, does that mean it had to start after 2000 or it just had to be running during 2000?
I don't know. I did not inspect the entire list. I will say that everything that we've looked at so far was in 2000s, started in the 2000s. And I'll give you a hint and say, in this case, that rule still applies. So basically, I think the question you're asking is it Seinfeld?
Yeah, that is exactly. That was exactly the question I was asking. So since it's not, good grief, top sitcom. Oh, is it Friends? No, it wouldn't be Friends either.
Wouldn't be
based
Friends.
on that rule. Okay. Yikes. I have no idea. When you tell me, I'm going to be like, well, that's obvious, but I'm not coming up with it off the top of my head.
Yeah. Number 1 is Arrested Development.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
I never would have guessed that in a million years. Now, I've seen Arrested Development. Very, very funny. There are specific scenes from Arrested Development that are like on my top list of comedy moments ever. So I like it. I would not have put it number 1, and I would not put it above 30 Rock, in fact.
Yeah, I'm not even sure I would put it. Well, maybe I would put it in front of 30 Rock. I would not put it in front of U.S. Office or Parks and Rec, to be sure, or even It's Always Sunny, despite my problems with some of its content. I think it's much funnier than Arrested Development. Arrested Development is very funny. Again, I guess because it's totally unrelatable, I find it to be, I don't know, don't really watch it. I do think that that the least funny part is Jason Bateman. I think the craziness with Will Arnett and David Cross and all the stuff going on around the family is funnier than him. And I realize that he's the straight man, but he is the central part of most of the stories. And for whatever reason, I find the B and C plot lines of these episodes to be always more funny than the A story, especially when it revolves around his character of Michael Bloom. So I get why it's on the list. I don't get why it's 1, but apparently people, the editors of Paste at least, think it's really funny. Yeah, they're big fans.
They're just vying for an invite on this podcast, I think. No, but that is weird. I would not put that at number 1 ever. But I do like it. I mean, I think it's very funny. And I would tell anyone who likes comedy, give it a shot.
You know what? Giving David Cross a job on network TV. That's pretty gutsy, so I'll respect that, if nothing else, and his Blue Man Group obsession.
He was my favorite part of that show.
Absolutely. Him and Will Arnett's magician character were absolutely my favorite parts of the show. So, okay, so that's it. So folks, you can hear that and you say, all right, so, you'll have a sense of whether or not Chris and I's tastes line up at all with yours based on these. And I hope that gives you a little bit more insight into our mind, as if listening to us blabber on for a couple hours a month hasn't already told you what's going on in the hamster wheel in my head. I hope this little exercise gave you a little bit more information. Let's talk about the two shows that we have right now that we picked for each other. Explained what the inspiration was. So, Chris, I picked for you Community, a show that I dearly love and I think should have been on the top 5. In fact, I would have put it at the number 1 spot, no doubt, on this list.
Give me some love, time in a dream. Give me the hope to run out of steam. Somebody say it could be here, it could be road. I'm tired of getting here. I can't count the reasons I should stay. One by one, they are just fading away.
Why? Why did you not watch Community?
Okay, so similar to my answer as to why I did not watch Always Sunny. Like there was no animosity towards Community. It wasn't like I refuse to watch the show on moral grounds. It wasn't like that. It's just that I don't know if you've noticed this, Dave, but there is a bunch of content out there. And even me with my obsessive mind, I find it very difficult to keep up with every single thing that people make and put out into the world. And Community very much was just a casualty of that. Now, I will also say, and I hope this doesn't offend you, I'm not a huge fan of Joel McHale. So the fact that he led
Joel
Community... I knew you'd say that, but the fact that he was the headliner made this an easy one for me to say, oh, you know what? I'm gonna go check out something else.
But was he the headliner?
It was marketed that way as far as I could remember. They're like, oh, here's Joe McHale's show. And even if it's an ensemble very much, and even if other people on the show are, in my opinion, way funnier than Joel McHale, he's still kind of the focal point of at least the episodes I watched.
Yeah, he's always right. I mean, he's the main character, and everyone orbits around him. So I handpicked 4 episodes for you, and I gave you a bonus just in case you wanted to, do a little extra credit. Don't know if you got a chance to watch it. You did.
I did.
All right. Okay.
So
the bonus is so, and I picked them all from the earlier runs, and the earlier runs have one thing in common it was incredibly important to me. And by the way, it says on the record, I like Joel McHale. I think Joel McHale is very funny. In fact, I'd put him in like the top 20 funniest people ever. Right? Wow. That's how I feel about him from a performance standpoint. I think his stand-up kind of is terrible. But as a performer, I think he's hilarious. But really, to me, the star of the show and the through line of many of these episodes is one of the funniest humans to have ever lived. I would say number 3 on my list, Chevy Chase, whose character Pierce I love and is involved deeply in all of these episodes, except for maybe one where he's just, more tangential to it. But so you avoided it because it just, there's a lot of competition. Joel McHale wasn't exactly your thing. Probably, marketing it as a show about a community college. When it really isn't necessarily about that. That's just the setting which they put these crazy chess pieces on. Probably didn't help it, right? But what did you think of this show? Did I convince you with my choices?
Okay, so before I go into what I thought of this show, I want to talk about Chevy Chase for a moment, which is I love Chevy Chase. Fletch and Fletch Lives are two of the most classically funny movies that you're ever going to find. Dearly love both of those. His performances in Vacation and all of those films, just yeah. If it's Chevy Chase, I'm in. And so even back when Community was airing, and I did not watch it, and I was watching other things, I always thought I should give Community a chance because of Chevy Chase. And I thought, it's probably something I'm going to enjoy because he's associated with it. I just never got to it. So with that little preamble on Chevy Chase, I watched these episodes of Community. I laughed at these episodes of Community. Am I going to watch more Community? Probably not. And I know that breaks your heart, and I'm sorry.
It does a little bit.
Yeah, it does. And I'll tell you where I got hung up on it, okay? If I watched more of this show, it would probably get to a point where these characters were endearing to me, but both the Joel McHale character and the Chevy Chase character are very unlikable.
Yes.
And in just the five episodes that I watched, I never overcame that sense of real dislike for them. Now, the supporting characters, especially Abed, in 5 episodes, I developed a real connection to this guy. And I'm like, oh, this guy is funny, and I like him, and I appreciate where he's coming from, his point of view. I just didn't connect with Joel McHale or Chevy Chase because I just thought they were mean for the sake of being mean. And it's like, we need mean characters to drive the narrative of this show. And that did not connect with me. But I will say that the chicken finger episode.
Yeah, that was done on purpose.
Is one of the funniest things I've seen.
Yeah.
That was hilarious. And I loved the setup. I loved the fact that, and they did this in several episodes that you assigned to me. In fact, we should list the episodes that you assigned for our listeners. But there's several of these episodes they do really intentional movie references, which I appreciated, and I enjoyed those and saw them and could call them out. But the chicken finger episode in particular was so well done and was so very funny, being a Goodfellas homage.
Yeah, and that's why I picked it, right? It's not actually one of
course.
the... I mean, it's one of my personal favorites, but I realize it's not considered to be a huge one by the community. But just so for those that don't, I would probably just take a quick step back. For those that don't know much about Community, it's a show about a community college with a bizarre cast of characters. But Joel McHale plays a character who is a lawyer, a successful lawyer, this real slick, handsome fella. But they discover that he never got his bachelor's degree, so he's forced to go back to school, where you go to get 4-year degrees, community colleges, which is an ongoing joke. But he's forced to go back to school to get his degree so that he can then go back to being a lawyer. So he hates it. He resents it. He resents everything that's going on. And he hooks up with this group of characters initially very cynically to get him to do the work for him. And then they quickly become attached. And most of the stuff I assigned you, Chris, was from the first season, where he is not the best guy. But there is a character arc. And then with Pierce, it's very interesting because Chevy Chase also has a character arc. He gets meaner, though. He gets worse, which is... most people who know anything about Community know that he left partway through the 4th season. And it was partly because he really hated the direction his character was going, and just was not happy with it, and he just left, just quit. And Chevy Chase didn't care. If he didn't find it funny, he didn't like what he was doing, he can just walk away, and nobody's going to say or do anything to him. But that's the driver of the show. These odd characters you mentioned, Abed, who is this very intelligent, pop culture obsessed character. He would be someone who might listen to our show, yes. I would be very appreciative to have Abed or someone like him listening to T-Mag. I think it would be a lot of fun to have him on the show. Or Danny Pundy, the actor who plays him. You mentioned the chicken finger episode because they do a lot of homage, parody, and satire, but they rarely do one that is on the nose or is pulled through the entire episode, like that chicken finger episode, which is a mob movie, and specifically Goodfellas with a little bit of Casino dropped in. Basically the Scorsese style of that time. The music cues are Scorsese, the camera work, the narration. It's all very very much like that. It's brilliant. And I picked that one specifically because I thought it would be a good hook for you. And then of course I picked some other ones that a lot of them dealt. The one of them that I picked for you. Of course, I picked the pilot, right? Because I am really big on. I think that the pilot does a decent job of introducing you to why the characters are there and who they are and how that interaction is going to work. So I thought, let's start from the start. Even though it's not a great episode, and I felt like it was important. But then it quickly gets into an episode about Pierce's religion, which is one of my favorite episodes, where they convince him to dress up like the Cookie Crisp wizard.
And I'll tell you my favorite part of that episode.
I
was
know
when
what
Donald
you're going to
Glover
say.
admits that he had no idea who that was.
Yes, yeah. So it's kind of funny that one of the bigger stars that comes out of Community is Glover. Neither the Crispin or the Danny sort of Glover, the Donald Glover. And he's a very talented comedian and rapper, musician. But yeah, his great little admission at the end that he had no idea what he was participating in, but he went along with it so everyone would think he was cool. It's very funny. This was in the first season of the show. It's actually like the 4th or 5th episode of the show. So very early on, you get a sense of where the show is going. And then, of course, we have Chicken Fingers, which is the send-up of the Scorsese movies, which is more of a love letter than a send-up, because it doesn't make fun of the style. It just uses that style to tell a funny story about how chicken fingers inside of a community college where they serve no good food at the cafeteria. Good chicken fingers are like worth their weight in gold. And so if this group can control the chicken finger market, he who controls the chicken fingers controls the universe. The chicken fingers must flow.
They probably were considering that as the homage to begin with.
A giant floating Chevy Chase.
Yeah, let's go a little bit more mainstream and do the Scorsese thing.
It was hard. There was another episode that I almost picked for you where they do Mystery Science Theater of movies. And they have where Abed and Troy host Mystery Science Theater nights. And of course, Pierce, Chevy Chase's character, wants to be involved so badly, but he's not funny. So he hires writers to write jokes for him. And then they switch up movies at the last minute. And of course, it throws him off and infuriates him. But it's a Mystery Science Theater episode. It's like, and that's awfully on the nose. It's pretty good, but it isn't great. And then I picked for you one of my personal favorites, which is the trampoline episode, which deals with addiction, elder abuse, a great Blade Runner parody, enhance, only to find out these old people were enhancing a PDF for instructions on how to use a drone and not actual drone images. And racism, deep racism is a part of that. It's hilariously handled because you have no idea it's coming. There is a joke about a swastika tattoo that he's going to turn into a maze, he swears, from one character, which is just, it's like, wow. It's so funny. I hope that you appreciated that.
Yeah, I didn't clock that as a Blade Runner reference. I thought they were just doing like I thought they were just doing like a CSI, like every cop show does the enhanced thing. But good to know. And then they do one of my favorite joke twists with the whole racism thing, where they're like, well, I didn't see that coming, and then Joel McHale's like, did we though?
Yeah,
and they do the flashback.
The flashbacks, the things you have not seen.
Obvious.
It's painfully obvious how racist one of the characters who's been hiding a trampoline, the caretaker of the trampoline, which by the way, that causes Pierce great injury and leads to a Pierce being addicted to prescription drugs arc, which is very...
Oh, really?
Which somehow is very funny.
Wow.
I don't know if you noticed Andy Dick there at the end playing his addiction, a little man floating around telling him to take more pills.
I did not catch that.
Yeah, there was very brief blink and you missed it. And then we got your extra credit was the Dungeons and Dragons episode, which is a famous episode in the community. Community. Oh boy, I got to come up with a better way of saying that. The fan base, but is a great Lord of the Rings send up, as well as poking a little fun at Dungeons and Dragons and how into it people can get or too into it. But there's some great Lord of the Rings stuff in there too.
I will say, just like the Scorsese thing, it's not mocking Dungeons and Dragons. It's actually one of the more realistic portrayals of the hobby I've ever seen on TV. So it's done with love, right? With the kind of that we're laughing with you, not at you kind of thing. And it was a very funny episode as well. Again, that one in particular may have been the one where they really soured me on Pierce and Joel McHale's character, because that they are particularly mean in that episode. Even though the arc of the story is Joel McHale's trying to redeem himself, it's still, he's kind of the one that caused it at the beginning. And that one, like especially Chevy Chase in that episode, he was just so
mean.
Just awful.
So I would, I'm going to defend the Joel McHale arc because it is a slow process to make him a good guy, but you could sort of see that transformation happening. But no, they keep making Chevy Chase's character worse and worse. It serves the humor well because sometimes there's just some great jokes that come from it. But I could see how that sort of character could get a little old.
We came into this episode and I was firmly in the I gave it a shot and I'm done camp. And this conversation has made me say maybe I'll give it a few more episodes. For anyone listening and is wanting to kind of, emulate our little experiment here, I will say, I think maybe if you'd given me a late episode as part of the watching assignment, that might have helped me. Like, especially if they're, have that arc kind of demonstrated for me, that might have gone a little bit further to pleading your case.
That's very interesting. And I considered that there's two reasons. Number one, the late episodes Chevy Chase is not in, and I as a big Chase fan, it's hard for me to go that direction. The other reason is that the show drops off in quality in the 5th and 6th season, and it doesn't mean there's not great episodes, because there are. But they're just not as good. There was one I did consider, though, which is a G.I. Joe episode that is 80% animated. Is very funny, and that just points out the obvious that neither Cobra as a terrorist organization doesn't do anything bad, and G.I. Joe as a military organization doesn't ever kill a bad guy. So it points that out, but it puts the community characters in the world of G.I. Joe, and they decide just to start killing bad guys, which then makes G.I. Joe in Cobra form Jobra to go and kill Wingman. They all are in there, and they all have code names. And it's a very funny episode. And there's a funeral for Destro in it, where Cobra Commander is like, when he said he was going to have his face dipped in chrome, I was like, that's an odd decision. But it's just sort of like, how do you eulogize Destro? And then admitting he's been in love with him his whole life, and you'll miss him. They were soulmates. That was a later episode, and it's not very well loved by the community fan base, but it's one I particularly like, just because, first of all, having most of your show be in cartoons, nuts. And they also did a claymation one like that and a puppet one like that, which are okay, but not my favorite. Well, and also just pointing out the obvious about G.I. Joe, that it really didn't make a ton of sense as a cartoon. No one ever got hurt with their laser blasts. This is, I don't know, it's pretty funny.
Although there's one episode of G.I. Joe that scarred me as a child, and we should talk about that on an episode someday, but not this one.
All right, maybe the big was Transformers the movie. Did it go too far with the death and destruction episode? We could. So one thing about Community, and I think it's going to be important to mention this as we transition into the show that you picked for me, is the pop culture references are strong in that show, and it's kind of, there are many episodes where they do a CSI knockoff. They do the Mystery Science Theater episode. They do a Glee episode that is a musical. I'm having trouble thinking of all of them. They do one that is done as a video game where the characters are all in River City Ransom style. Not joking. Pierce is forced to play in order his father created it for him in order to win his inheritance. And so there's all kinds of pop culture, deep cuts. And the show you picked for me, I thought it was very funny how I picked an episode for you based on its pop culture references, the chicken finger episode. And I'm pretty sure you did the same for me.
Yeah. The show that I gave you was Psych.
I'm not inclined to resign to maturity. If it's alright, then you're all wrong. But why bounce around to the same damn song? You'd rather run when you can't crawl. I know, you know that I'm not telling the truth. I know, you know, they just don't have any proof. It's the deception. Learn how to bend your worst inhibitions, then psych you out in the end.
From the USA Network, from the time when they were doing original programming, and they'd had a kind of a lead into that with the animated show Duckman, which was not that great. And then they had a huge hit with the mystery Monk, which is a wonderful show that I dearly love. And then based on the success of that, they did Psych, which also was a very popular show for them. So Psych, of course, is about a fake psychic who helps the Santa Barbara Police Department, and he has no real psychic power. He just has incredible observational powers, and the show unfolds from there. So before we get into the episodes, it was not lost on me that we both picked two series that wear their references on their sleeves.
Yes.
And are not ashamed to say, hey, we were influenced by pop culture, and we're going to insert that into our program as well. So the two episodes you have are This Episode Sucks from season 6 and season 5, I think, and then Dual Spires from season 6.
I think it's the other way around.
I may have got that.
Yep. Yeah,
I may have
because
got that
you told me to
switched.
watch
Okay.
them out of order.
Yeah.
Which I did.
That's right.
But I gave myself extra credit and watched the pilot because I felt like that was important to understand the characters in the universe and why they're doing what they're doing. Let me explain to you why I never watched the show. And you actually mentioned it during your introduction, your framing of the show. It was on the USA Network, and I had no confidence that the USA Network could produce something worth watching, even though I had people for years. My sister was telling me, you got to watch the show. It's funny. It's neat. No, nope. I remember being at Universal Studios and seeing plastered Universal Studios Orlando on the side of one of their buildings, a massive billboard for Psych, and saying, oh, it's on USA. Nope. No interest in that. Same thing that has kept me from watching Monk. I just didn't feel like USA could really produce it. All I was thinking of was like the Up All Night, Gilbert Gottfried hosted midnight movie type stuff, and other things, right? Reruns of shows like Walker, Texas Ranger, or whatever they had on there. And I think that's a TNT show or was when it was in reruns. But yeah, for whatever reason, it was like, I don't know if that channel could produce something of quality. And I actually did not know it was a fake psychic. I thought it was a real psychic. So, and didn't realize how heavily it leaned into the comedy. So once I understood better what it was, I felt like maybe I had a better shot at liking it. I will say this, though, as we were preparing for this, I thought about the reasons why I hadn't watched it, because USA, and I thought, I better go look that up, because what would be more funny is if I looked it up and realized it wasn't on USA, and I had been misunderstanding it for well over a decade. And I did look it up, and it was on USA, like Monk, like I thought it was. So at least it didn't... My reasons may not have been valid, but at least they were, logically correct in the sense that
they were accurate.
Right. The facts backing them, I should say, were accurate. So I did. So I watched the pilot first, And then I watched the 2 episodes that you picked. This episode sucks and Dual Spires. I had no idea what I was getting into. I went in really blind. Let me say this. I realized why you didn't have me watch the pilot. Because it wasn't very good. And I was a little concerned. I was like, uh-oh, I got to watch 2 more episodes of this. And the pilot was longer than your typical episode. But I was like, this is not very well acted. This is not particularly well written. The mystery was not great. I found his entree into the world of being a fake psychic kind of silly. I was like, there's a couple different ways they could have wrote this that would have been a little bit better and funnier. But I was like, okay, whatever, right? Suspend disbelief and then move on. So the pilot was, so I would say this, if you're going to watch the show and get into it, watch the pilot, because I do think it's important for establishing, the universe, the relationship with his dad, the main character, this fake psychic's relationship with his dad and this friend and how they get into this. But just recognize it's not great. And as some pilots are, they're made on the cheap.
I think that's a completely fair statement. And I will say it's not like some shows where you're talking to your friends like, oh, it's a great show, but you got to get to season 3 for it. It's
right.
not like that.
It's not like that. Okay, good.
I would say that like 2 or 3 episodes into season 1, they really hit their stride. And some of my favorite episodes are actually season 1 episodes. It's just you are right. That pilot is a little rough. They don't quite know their characters yet. And there was some recasting that happened after the pilot. So
really,
yeah, there was a little bit. The female police officer,
I thought she looked different. I wondered if she was recast. I thought, okay, she aged in a strange way. Usually people don't age like laterally into a new face, but her voice was so similar that, but now, another thing about it, yeah, she was definitely recast. Okay.
So it's technically a different character. Like they went that direction with it. And they're like, oh, she, the other one went off to blah, blah, blah. But the fact of the matter is at the pilot stage, they were like, oh, we got to get a different person for this.
That happens.
So I think your criticism is fair. Now that you saw later episodes, tell me what you thought.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So, I mentioned a few things, right? That I thought it was poorly acted, poorly written. I thought most of the jokes were duds in the pilot. I thought the mystery was not particularly interesting. The clues and how he pieced it together. I did think they had a pretty good visualization of his abilities. And I think that was probably the hook that got the show greenlit, and that they were able to build from that base. Is that they had a really interesting visual way of demonstrating how he uses his detective skills and how he passes them off as, supernatural psychic abilities. The next episode you had me watch was a season 6 episode. This episode sucks, which was them investigating a murder by a suspected vampire. And it was very well written. It was hilarious. The acting was great. The characters were very well defined. The mystery was interesting. I actually found myself trying to figure out, okay, are they bringing supernatural into this? How's it going to work out? And I really enjoyed it. I was like, okay, I can see that they definitely improved from the pilot. I thought that some of the pop culture references were it was there were some, but it was lighter on pop culture references, but they were definitely there. I thought that they were in vampire culture. One of them dressed up like Blackula, which was pretty funny, and the other one, I swear, looks like Stuart Townsend as one of the vampire Anne Rice's vampire novels.
I'm pretty sure that's what they were going for.
Yeah. But Stuart Townsend's take on it, not necessarily Tom Cruise's take, which was even a deeper cut. I was like, okay,
yes.
That's pretty funny, and it was great. And I was like, okay, I find these characters interesting, endearing. Corbin Burnson, who is the only big actor of name, I think, that's really in the show, and he's in it very briefly. But hey, I was like, okay, this is cool. I like this. I'm enjoying this, and I thought it was a very strong, funny episode that, in an hour-long format, fused mystery and kooky comedy in a way that is really tough to do. And so I was like, okay, all right. I missed out on something, and then I was ready for the next episode. And I had absolutely no idea what I was getting into. Dual Spires is the name of the episode, and it opens with the 2 characters, Gus and the psychic guy, whose name I can't remember, sorry. Sean. Okay. Talking about someone in Washington inventing silent curtains. And I was like, well, that's a weird reference to Twin Peaks. And then I was like, dual spires. Is this going to be a Twin Peaks episode? And I was tickled pink. That we got a Twin Peaks episode, and not just a Twin Peaks episode, like a really solid Twin Peaks episode that put us into a world like Twin Peaks, kind of like the chicken episode did, that lovingly recreated elements of that world and, melded that into this world of Psych, gave us lots of characters from the actual show Twin Peaks, and put us into a town of dual spires that is very much like the town of Twin Peaks, in a murder mystery that it kept me guessing, but I became so intent on finding the Twin Peaks Easter eggs that I actually went back and rewound a couple parts just to make sure I picked up on a few other things about the mystery, because I thought it was so well done and so funny, and I was surprised at how much. First of all, I was surprised that it got done, that this show was made. I did not realize the star of the show had written that episode. Matt Shackman, who is the director of Fantastic Four: First Steps, directed that episode.
I did not realize that.
Yeah, I did not realize that. By the way, Community has Marvel roots because the Russo brothers directed and wrote many episodes of Community before going in to do Civil War and Winter Soldier and Endgame and all that, and doing the future Marvel stuff as well, Doomsday and all that. But I had a great time, I had a blast. The Twin Peaks references were great. They were deep. It was funny. It was done lovingly. We got Ray Wise as a kindly priest, it was like, I love Ray Wise. It was nice to see him in a role you could root for. It showed his range. It also showed him as being the most competent person on the show and character. We got plenty of pie references. They went with cider instead of coffee, which I was perfectly fine with. They had their Agent Cooper stand in. Well, that wasn't beat to death, and I was very happy that was used sparingly, but to great effect. Gus became my favorite character during that show.
Yeah.
And I'll say the moment it became my favorite character is when he and the priest are talking about their next Bible study and how they're going into Ecclesiastes and how that was his favorite. And I was like, okay, that's really funny. That's just a funny joke. And I just enjoyed the whole thing. And the lovingly crafted Twin Peaks, and I won't call it a parody. I'll just say it's straight up homage.
Yeah.
And or homage. I think the H is silent. It's straight up homage by some pretty funny hombres or hombres, whichever one you want to say. And I really enjoyed it. And I was like, okay, wow, I missed out. And there's a good possibility that I will watch. I will dive into Psych at some other levels based on the strength of these episodes. Even though I think that the main character's acting, Sean, is a bit weak, and even the others, I think, develop their characters more. I think that he's probably, he's fine and he's pretty funny, but I think he's probably the weak acting link in the chain. That was a tough sentence, a tongue twister. But I thought Gus was hilarious, and Ray Wise playing the kindly priest, who apparently is a reoccurring character.
Yes.
I enjoyed that very, very much. And of course, all the Twin Peaks folks coming back. Sherilyn, Finn, terrible with names today, but some of the others came back as well. Bobby Briggs came back.
Yep.
And there was no analog for Philip Jeffries. I would have loved to have seen a Jude reference.
No, we didn't get into Firewalk with Me.
I guess they weren't there to talk about Jude. So
That's true. That's true. Nobody is.
But man, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, and I missed out on something because of a bias against USA.
Well, I will say that USA knocked it out of the park with Psych. It's one of my favorite shows of all time, but also Monk is a fantastic show. And I joke with my wife that I could probably just like watch Monk, and then when that's over, watch Psych, and then when that's over, watch Monk, and just keep that going for the rest of my life and be perfectly fulfilled in my my entertainment needs. It would drive her crazy, but I'd be okay with it. But when I will say when I was watching Community and I got to the chicken finger episode, my thought was, I can't believe I picked the Dual Spires episode for Dave. I mean, and the similarities in approach to comedy in Community and in Psych are very, very similar. If you do watch Psych, you'll get a lot more episodes where they not necessarily parody a specific movie, but they really, really hard parody a specific genre. And it kind of opens up from there. And so they've got all those, and there are specific movie references in there too, don't get me wrong, but it's a very enjoyable show. Gus being your favorite character is no surprise. He is outstanding in the show. I think you're a little hard on James Roday's acting. Sean becomes a really endearing character. I think that's a fair criticism for the pilot. But if you start watching, I think very quickly you'll develop a real love for everyone involved in the show. And Corbin Burnson is a recurring character throughout, and his relationship with Sean is a very, very strong arc in the show and a very entertaining arc to watch. So I'm glad you enjoyed the episodes. That was the point of what we're doing here.
Yeah, I'm sold on it. I was wrong to ignore it. And we always try to ask a question, right, and answer it in these episodes. And it's why are there shows out there that you would love that you just didn't know about? And some of it is time, some of it is so many choices, and you just don't pick that. And some of it is you judge a book by its cover, or you judge a show by its network. And that's what I did in this case. That's what I feel like I learned today. And it makes me want to go and watch an episode of Monk now, because I've only heard great things about it, ignored it for basically, and I like Tony Shalhoub, but ignored it for basically the same reason that I did Psych. So, I obviously have got some things to learn.
Give it a shot, or wait until we do another episode of this, and I'll just assign you some episodes of Monk.
Well, I did have a big monk fruit episode coming up. We were just going to eat monk fruit and talk about it for an hour, but we could just, we could maybe split that up with the
combine the two.
Show. Yeah, I mean, we combine the two. Yeah, I've never had monk fruit, so I don't know. It may be disgusting.
I haven't either, actually, no. So that might be a really good topic. But I will say that for me, it is a time thing, and maybe I was too hasty to dismiss Community. Even after watching your episodes, I might have to continue with it and see where it leads me. I've got Peacock for a month now, so I might as well.
All right. Well, there's an episode in season 3 called Remedial Chaos Theory that is considered by the Community fan base as the best episode. I didn't pick it because I just didn't feel like it was a great representation, and it's also kind of deep, and you have to know the characters. But it deals with parallel universes and time travel, and how decisions create potentially different dimensions. And so that is one to check out. And then there's also a reoccurring theme of Abed is obsessed with a Doctor Who-like show called Professor Time Space, and it does make good, clever work of like things like fan conventions and Doctor Who itself, which can at times be very silly. So there's things to check out there. But Remedial Chaos Theory, don't let dice make your decisions for you, because every time you do, you create another universe. So it's very interesting. So yeah. I feel like, I feel like I learned something, and I found a show that I could potentially like. And at the very least, I found a fantastic companion piece to Twin Peaks that I think lovingly recreated that world in a humorous way. And I had heard, if you read, I did a little digging. Did David Lynch have knowledge of this? And basically, the rumor is, yes, he had knowledge of it. And after it happened, he watched it and he thought it was pretty good. So if you do a little research on that, that was the word that got back to the series star who wrote it. And he wanted to have David Lynch in it, but he was too afraid to bring it to him, is what I read, because he was afraid that David Lynch wouldn't like it, and he was terrified of getting sort of like any kind of feedback from one of his heroes, and decided not to go that direction. Which I totally understand, right? It'd be like saying, Mike Nelson, I want you to look at one of my this little comedy bit I wrote, and then have him say, "Wow, this really sucks, man." That'd be heartbreaking on so many levels. So I get why he didn't do that, but the word got back, and that Lynch thought that it was pretty good, is what we hear. So. which I would imagine that he would, because there's, it deals with it in a loving, gentle way that I would bet that he would think that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. Really loud like that. So.
That's probably exactly how it went. Yeah, that's how I imagine it. Well, we had another successful playlist episode. I was a little cautious on this one when you pitched it, because I was like, wow, I might be committing to a tremendous amount of time here versus just listening to 4 or 5 songs. But it worked out. It was good, and I'm glad you enjoyed Psych. I'm thrilled for that.
Well, also I had generated a thumbnail for it, and I guess at that point I'd already put some sweat equity into it. Like, I guess I got to say yes.
And a whole episode that was that came from a thumbnail. So here we go.
Well, folks, we want you to listen to the show more. We want you to interact with us, message us. What else? Pigeon carriers. Drones like that new classic War of the Worlds movie. It's a new classic where you send a drone to my home with a message, War of the Worlds with ice. It's the cubed kind, right? It wasn't iced tea or the vanilla flavored ice. It's ice cube. Yeah, that's right.
No,
get my ices confused. We want to hear from you. Chris, tell our listeners where they can reach us.
I'd be happy to. You can reach us at 2middleagedguys.com. That is 2, the numeral 2, middleagedguys.com. And from there, you can find us on our socials. You can find links to every possible podcast, whatever that you might choose to listen to us on, and find all of our episodes there. We'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us. Tell us if you like the shows that we pick. Tell us episodes of shows that are your favorites, that everyone that you talk to has never seen an episode of it. See if we've seen an episode of it. I got to say the odds are probably pretty high that we have, but if not, we'd love to check it out, and we'd love to hear from our listening audience.
We do. Hey, listening audience has inspired episodes of our show. They've sent us ideas, and hey, have you ever seen this or heard of this? And we're like, oh, we have. We just forgot about it. Let's do something with that. So yeah, absolutely. We'd love to hear from you. So
they've also sent us ideas that we've never done and are on the schedule, I promise.
That's right. That's right. Well, folks, thank you for listening. Watch Community, watch Psych, watch Monk. In fact, watch everything on the USA Network. Actually, both of these shows are on Peacock. So
that's true.
Did we just do an hour-long commercial for Peacock? Are we
for Peacock,
like War of the Worlds, doing an hour and a half long Amazon Prime commercial? Did we just do one for Peacock?
I feel like I should have got this month of Peacock free because of this episode.
Because of this episode, yeah.
They charged me, so oh well.
All right. Thanks, folks.